Time now to talk a little Indians baseball with Matt Loede, Indians writer for rantsports.com and AP Radio as well. The Indians are now halfway through the season. All-Star break about 2 weeks away. All right, who will represent the Indians at the All-Star break?
Andy, I think right now Corey Kluber, who's had a pretty good season. He's 7th in the majors as far as strikeouts with 122, ERA just over 3. I think he's been the most effective. Michael Brantley leads this team right now as far as average is concerned. As far as home runs, he's tied with Carlos Santana with 12. 53 runs batted in. I know a lot of people want to see Lonnie Chisenhall with a big average at 350 make it, but I'll tell you what, still to me, too young. I don't want to say it's a flash in the pan. He's been very effective this season, but I think he's got to do it a little bit longer to convince me that he's an all-star.
Terry Francona was making the pitch that maybe Yan Gomes should be going to the All-Star game.
Yeah, I don't see it happening. He's just been too inconsistent as far as defensively this year. Way too many errors early in the year. He has 9 home runs. He's been okay at the plate, but to me, I just think that's a far cry. Very good defensive catcher. I think he's maybe, though, a year away from that happening.
All right, let's talk about Justin Masterson and that knee. Where are we in the recovery process, and what's the latest on his status?
He's been cleared to pitch. He'll pitch on Tuesday night. He joked with reporters in Seattle yesterday that he wants to be able to go longer, and he has been very ineffective lately for the Tribe. In his last 8 starts, in 4 of them, has only gone 5 innings or less. He has just not been the pitcher he was a year ago, Andy, when he had all those shutouts, when he was the go-to guy. Right now, this starting rotation, with 3 of the 5 guys that started the year in the starting rotation not in it, is clearly, to me, the Achilles heel and why this team is simply not the same as far as the numbers are concerned from the starting rotation. Masterson is a big part of that. He was supposed to be the ace, and clearly he's been pretty much ineffective for the whole season.
All right, yesterday the Tribe got an unbelievable performance from Josh Tomlin. Tomlin had been struggling of late, but last night he threw a 1-hitter, struck out 11, and Matt, the Indians really needed that last night. I mean, that game was of historic proportions. I mean, he said he had over 100 emails and texts from what happened last night.
Right.
I don't think he realized it when he pitched last night, but his line, second best to maybe Len Barker's perfect game.
Yeah, he was unbelievable.
That good.
Yeah, he was as good as I've ever seen him. He was on with everything last night. He's been very good lifetime against Seattle, but I'll tell you what, he was as good as any pitcher I've seen in this rotation for one night in a long, long time. Maybe as good as, you're right, you have to go back to Len Barker in 1981. I'll tell you the one thing about Tomlin, though, again, it's consistency. Let's see in 5 days if he can go out and do it once again, because, again, if there is going to be a spark plug on this team right now, it's got to come from the starting rotation. They've got to get some good performances. There you see Ryan Rayburn had a headache today, but made an outstanding catch last night in right field.
All right, it's almost halfway through the season. We're pretty much right there right now. Got to start thinking about some moves. Is it bat? Is it pitcher? What do you think this team should do to get themselves over the hump and get into the playoffs?
I've said it. I think pitching has got to be the key for this organization. I mean, there's going to be guys in that trade market that you can look at. The guys from Chicago, like Jason Hamill. You've got Cliff Lee and Bartolo Colon being mentioned. Boy, I'll tell you what, how about David Price? 10-8 would be a franchise guy, only 28 years old. I don't know what Tampa's going to want, but they're going to want the boat to go get a guy like David Price. I don't think the Indians currently have that, whether they're willing to give up a high-priced prospect, and forget about Francisco Lindor. It's not going to happen, folks. But I'll say this, if they can get one of those guys for a starting rotation spot, I think it'll put them right back in the race. Because, again, go back to the start of the year. Carrasco out of the rotation. Salazar out of the rotation. They've had Tomlin in there. They've had Bauer in there. You can't win in this league right now with that starting rotation being as inconsistent as it has been. Unless Masterson can come back and have an outstanding second half, I think they're going to be back and forth just like they have been for most of the first half.
Who's tradable then? I mean, if you're not looking at Lindor and you're looking at some guys that are struggling here and there, I mean, I hate to say Chisenhall, but I mean, who else on this roster is exciting to another team to say, I want that guy right now, and I'm willing to trade a big gun to get it?
I mean, the only guy that I think in the starting 9 that's tradable, as far as a guy that will get some value, even though his average is low, is Asdrubal Cabrera. He's still young enough as a shortstop. He's at a position, as far as shortstop goes, where a lot of teams could use a franchise shortstop. Now, again, I'm not saying that he's that guy, but I think, to me, Andy, a change of scenery for Asdrubal Cabrera would do him good. You're not going to trade Bourne. You're not going to trade Swisher. I mean, you're right. It's got to be a package. It's not going to be one guy. It's probably going to be a 3 or 4 for 1 type of deal. You've got some guys even, you know, does John Axford go somewhere else and be effective? I don't think so, but boy, I'll tell you what, it's going to have to be probably a package of major league players, minor league players. It's not going to be Lindor. To me, it's going to be a guy like Asdrubal Cabrera. Probably, you know, Justin Masterson could also be involved. I mean, because he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. You've got those 2 guys coming off the books. Other than that, like you said, I don't really know where they're going to find all these guys that are going to be in the trade bait but I think it's going to be a combination of Cabrera, maybe Masterson, maybe one or two guys in the double or single A level even, depending on what a team's going to want.
All right, hang tight. We've got questions for you coming up. Still ahead, Northeast Ohio has NHL draft madness this weekend. You wouldn't believe what happened. Plenty of local players made their dreams come true by getting their shot in the NHL. We're going to bring that story up in just a few moments, plus your questions for Matt when we return. Take a look at the upcoming schedule for the Indians in tonight's Indians Report. The Tribe will finish out their West Coast trip in Los Angeles with a interleague series against the Dodgers. Then the Indians will head back home for an important 3-game divisional series against the Royals. That is 4th of July weekend. In fact, this is the last homestand before the All-Star break. We bring back in Matt Loede. Before we get to questions, want to talk about today's game. They lose 3-0. King Felix was just dealing on the hill today. Indians had a lot of trouble getting a hit, but TJ House was very respectable.
He was. He was about as good as you could expect from a guy that gets called up. Of course, filling in for Justin Masterson, who was down with the knee injury. He'll be back to pitch on Tuesday in Los Angeles. House 6+ innings. The big hit of the game, the 2-run home run, of course, by Robinson Cano. Otherwise, I totally agree with you, Andy. I think he was respectable. I think as far as his confidence is concerned, it's growing. This, to me, was the best outing he's had on the mound. He also had a good outing in Baltimore a couple weeks ago. Let's be honest, though, this rotation, as we mentioned in the last segment, is just in trouble right now when 3 you're starting 5 from the beginning of the year is down with McAllister, Carrasco. Those guys needed to step up. They haven't. They're trying to go with this piecemeal rotation right now with now Masterson on the shelf, and House filled in pretty nicely today for him.
All-Star break can't get here fast enough.
They need some time off. They do. They need some time to get some of these injuries wrapped up, and they need to decide a plan going forward. I mean, what are you going to do with some of these guys like Carlos Carrasco? What are you going to do with guys like John Axford in the back end of that rotation as far as the bullpen is concerned? Who's going to be the closer going forward? I think there's some serious questions you have to answer going forward, Andy.
All right, speaking of questions, time now for our Arby's Slicing Up Freshness segment. We slice up a fresh set of Indians questions for you, submitted on Facebook and Twitter. First question is from Karen on Facebook. Do you let Swisher play out his slump or let him sit for a while?
I think I've been vocal about this. So right now, Nick Swisher is, as far as the starting 9 is concerned, by far the lowest of the batting averages. He certainly has had a couple of big home runs. The big home run on Father's Day in Boston, the game-winner grand slam a week ago at home. But I'll be honest with you, I can't watch this guy night after night strike out with guys on base. I know that Terry Francona is in his corner. He shifted him up and down the lineup about every which way but loose. But right now, I think you got to sit him every once in a while. And I'll tell you what, if he doesn't get going, you got to sit him even more often, Andy.
All right, next question is from Don on Twitter. Should TJ House be given the opportunity to stay in this rotation, especially after today?
Yeah, I think he still needs some seasoning, Andy. And as far as that question is concerned, I don't think he's quite ready to be there every 5 days. I think right now, with the fact that you've got Trevor Bauer pitching every 5 days, Tomlin up from AAA, a third guy up from AAA pitching every 5 days, to me, it's trouble. I think you need Justin Masterson to get back to doing what he does best, which is going out there and giving you 6 or 7 innings of good baseball. As far as being on the mound, TJ House, to me, is not quite ready. A year from now, we'll have the same conversation, though.
Final question is from Mike on Facebook. Any trading deadline moves in the works or being discussed? I know we talked about that a little bit earlier in the show.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, it's so up in the air. You've got about a month left until the trading deadline, and you're going to hear rumors up and down the mill. To me, again, it goes back to pitching. I think they're going to look at guys as far as the rotation is concerned. I mentioned names earlier: Price, Hamill, Lee, Cologne, Samardzija from Chicago. You've got so many guys out there. Brandon McCarthy from Arizona is another one. There's going to be names mentioned. The key thing, though, about this for the Indians is what assets do they have to give up.
Matt Loede, thank you very much. Rantsports.com and also AP Radio. We appreciate it. We'll be listening and read your stuff online as well. We're back with final thoughts after this.